Hello, and welcome to What Moves Us, the podcast where we ask what moves us, or more accurately, what's going to move us in future.
We look at debates, themes, and decisions of the minute that will impact on the way we get about in the future.
Good morning. Welcome, everybody. What Moves Us? I'm Liam Henderson, and on the line with me today is Deb Carson and James Whitelock. James is our special guest, new member of the Rail Innovation Group, and is speaking to us today from ThinkinCircles. So, James, do you want to introduce yourself?
Well, first off, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for having me on. Name is James Whitelock. I'm the managing director of ThinkinCircles, and we're a employer branding business. So what we work with businesses that are struggling to find the right kind of talent and attract the right kind of talent and retain that talent, and are maybe having difficulty kind of shouting to the outside world about how good an employer or how great a place it is their business is to work at. And we do that through branding, through kind of marketing, through helping businesses build what's called an EVP, an employer value proposition. Basically, why you're a great place to work at, and why people should work with you, and why they should be part of that kind of community that you're trying to build around your kind of workplace.
I think that sounds like an excellent service and topic, and I think Deb is probably going to jump in with some comments about the skills paper that we're coming up with that we are launching later on, because I think it is generally a challenge for most small startups to be the employer that people look for, because I think people studying any tech sort of subject look towards hyperscalers and global tech companies as their sort of vision for where they want to be.
Yeah, it'd be good to say a bit about our skills report, just quickly shoehorn that in, because we'll be launching that soon. We've looked at our members in the Rail Innovation Group and all of the kind of really quite critical, I would say, skills that they have within all of their companies, small micro companies really. And it kind of for this discussion, I suppose it's quite pertinent. James, you talked about, your focus on employer branding, and it feels like the rail industry often struggles with the perceptions of being traditional, slow to innovate, all of that kind of thing. And it feels to me like employer branding can can help shift that narrative to highlight some of the sort of innovative, tech-driven aspects of the sector. And I don't know, I wondered if you could sort of say something about that.
Yeah, well, I would hope so. Yeah, it is. I think, we've talked about this. I think I've talked about this previously with Liam, is that it's a messaging problem to a certain extent. It's not necessarily that the rail industry itself is any different from other kind of industries. I know there might be a perception, but it's just as exciting. It's just as innovative. It's just as forward thinking. I think it's just the messaging has never been right. And I think these smaller kind of these micro kind of businesses that are part of the membership have the opportunity to kind of change the dialogue on that, right? And they might not necessarily know how to do it themselves, but with a business like ours, or the support of a business like ours, we can help them kind of reach the kind of people that they are looking to employ and retain as well, because that's part of this as well. You don't want to lose the talent that you've already got within your kind of businesses. But it can kind of change that dial by telling people that it is the kind of place that people should be looking to work at. It isn't necessarily always the best place to be when you're looking to work at the really big kind of mega tech businesses. They can, they have their own challenges themselves, right? And actually understanding what it's like to work at these kind of scaling businesses is probably the message that needs to be put out there, that actually that is very exciting. It is kind of fast moving. It can all be done at pace, and you can be part of shaping those businesses if you kind of get in there at an early stage, and you can kind of have an amazing career and a career trajectory that could grow with those businesses, as opposed to becoming a small cog in a very big machine. You could potentially become a slightly bigger cog in this kind of machine that's kind of going in a really kind of exciting direction. But a lot of small businesses just don't know how to shout about that, and how to message that, and how to talk about that to the people that they're interested in talking to, and how that can be effectively used to attract that talent into their business.
Yeah. And I guess that's true of even the kind of what you might consider traditional engineering, within the sector and within construction, which, I mean, I work a lot on HF, around sort of new rail, high speed rail, which is obviously there's a construction and kind of, traditional kind of railway type stuff. So you've got that even within the traditional engineering side of things, it's, things are moving to sort of be much more around, using AI, et cetera, all of that cutting edge technology coming into that kind of traditional engineering element.
As an aside, high speed rail also needs a rebrand.
Shouting about it, right? It's about the messaging. It's about shouting about it, and a lot of employer branding is about being honest as well. There's an honesty and an authenticity there, which some of these terms that get kind of overused. But if you're not almost conning people into thinking that your business is run this way and it's and your company culture is this, then someone joins and then it's not really what they were expecting. We've done a lot of kind of work within the advanced engineering business with businesses that are in motorsport as an example, and that's a very sexy place where businesses where we want to be. But actually, it's a lot of hard work, right? And actually, it has a huge amount of kind of retention issues and turnover problems because it doesn't message itself in the right way that you're going to be expected to work lots of weekends. You're going to be expected to work into the evenings, and this is just what is expected of you. And so the work we've done with those businesses is to become more authentic and more honest about what it is like. And you'll find the right people who will stay with, because they're in a position that they don't mind working that way, and that's the way they want to work. And again, with the kind of the rail industry, it's probably in a very similar situation, that there's a bit of honesty there, that it's, that this is the way this industry works, and it's not necessarily right for everybody, but it's right for the people, this kind of demographic or this audience that we want to kind of speak to. And managing those expectations from an employer's point of view is essential as well.
Can I just take us back a little bit? You speak very, very passionately about this. How did you come up with I'm going to assume you did. How did you come up with the idea or the reason that it was the employer that needed to rebrand or rechange? Did it come from personal experience, or is it just something you thought? And then how did that thought end up being ThinkinCircles? For which, for listeners, you have a very fetching hoodie on. ThinkinCircles hoodie.
I suppose let me take you on a journey. Let's kind of step back a few years, and I'll give you a bit about my background and how I kind of got to where I got to. So my background is working within recruitment agencies, large global recruitment agencies, as in their kind of e-business and IT and marketing kind of departments. So that's where my interest in talent attraction came from, and the understanding the struggles that businesses have around talent attraction, but always with one eye on marketing and branding, as opposed to sourcing what might a recruitment agency might well kind of do for you, which is we always have to make decisions. That's not what we do. We're not recruiters. We're there to brand you as an employer of choice. So that's where my interest in kind of the talent attraction process and how you can try and brand a business as a great place to work. So that's where it kind of started. And for many of kind of ThinkinCircles' years, we did a lot of work specifically with recruitment agencies and help them to kind of understand why certain candidate pools would want to work with certain clients of theirs. And so we acted as kind of like a middleman in there, supporting those. And in time, that just kind of, again, led us to talking to the end kind of client, the end employer, around, there's ways around attracting talent, and there's ways around retaining that you may not have thought about before, and come at that from a branding and marketing aspect, and shouting about, you've got all these kind of tools available now. You've got social media and all the kind of variations of that. You've got the different formats from written, visual, video, audio, as well. And I think a lot of businesses just need support in getting their heads around how they can use all this new kind of stuff that's available to them to be able to kind of do that shouting around kind of talent attraction. I didn't come up with the term employer branding. There's lots of other employer branding agencies out there. It's just kind of, but it is a quite niche area within kind of marketing, though. And I think it comes from, one, me having a background within recruitment, And actually, all of my team in the business all have kind of recruitment marketing experience as well. So we've all kind of got that, and so it kind of puts us in a nice position that we can kind of talk about this with some authority.
Mm, mm. I was just thinking about us moving on it's a slightly different direction, but because I was reading up a little bit, doing my homework before this podcast, and you hear this term values-driven employees, James, and I wondered do you think that there's something in it for rail companies kind of. I'm thinking about, sustainability, for example, as a priority within rail and as a kind of something that rail companies could potentially sort of lean into their environmental credentials. Is there something in that, do you think, around sort of values-driven employees and people actually actively seeking to work somewhere where they feel that their values are being kind of, that are reflected in the organisation?
Absolutely. I mean, there's lots of research around that definitely there are demographics of job seekers that see that as a really kind of important piece of where they want of a workplace kind of environment. The environmental credentials, their policies around ED&I and diversity are also very very important.
Yeah.
It's not always necessarily down to their remuneration, right? A lot of places will kind of pay well, and actually it's not necessarily down to what they're going to pay. It comes down to, is this a great workplace culture?
Yeah.
Is this kind of an environment that I'm going to feel comfortable, safe, and enjoy what I do, and so thus the employer gets the best out of me, basically, as when I go to work. So those are the things that are definitely, especially for the kind of younger generation, that are kind of playing more into their decisions around working for an employer over something like kind of the amount of money they will make. There's some evidence that maybe that has shifted a little bit over the last kind of year or so, just because the kind of economic climate has changed slightly. But generally, we are seeing that younger generation do feel that they want to work in a workplace culture that aligned with their kind of sensibilities.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So just within our community of small companies, what is the sort of the key sell? Does it differentiate them and make them the people who are going to get the talent and get the contracts, or what is it that they need to know?
It can do all of them, right? Definitely, there's different angles from this. One, it's around attracting and retaining that talent. So you're going to get a great kind of company culture with the people that want to work there. But also, we definitely see that as an employer, the clients you want to kind of work with as well will do their research on you and will want to know that you are a good place to work, and potentially align with their own kind of their own sensibilities as well. But we're seeing much more of that, and you can see a lot of this with businesses that are B Corp and things like that. That B Corps want to work with other B Corps, and so they're all kind of aligned. So if you are in a position where you've got this kind of great company culture, you've got a workplace where individuals and employees are more than happy to shout about it's a great place to work, then they want that to be a mirror. We always kind of use that as an example, that your clients kind of want to see a mirror of themselves, right? When they're kind of working with you as a supplier of some kind. So if they have these kind of same sensibilities and they see that you do, it's a much easier conversation to have. And a lot of businesses don't really think about it that way. They think of it much more around kind of, it's a B2B sales kind of cycle, but actually it's much more sophisticated than that now, and having and the ability to kind of prove that you've got a great place to work and that you've got, robust, benefits and robust ED&I kind of in place and things like that definitely reflect on whether people want to work with you as a supplier.
So, if I may jump in, can we turn this on yourself? What do you do within ThinkinCircles to demonstrate this?
I like a lot of businesses, we're probably not the best at shouting about it ourselves, but it's like those website development businesses that always have really rubbish websites because they're always working on everyone else's. And I guess we are we're probably not the best at doing ourselves, simply because we're actually busy helping other people about it. But as for the kind of internal culture, I think I try to kind of build a business where, we're very relaxed. We we build partnerships with our clients based on our kind of understanding of what we sell and leadership within that space. And I try to empower the people within my team to take responsibility for that. I suppose unlike a lot of businesses, maybe the demographic in my business, we don't are all kind of the slightly kind of older. I've got an older team to a certain extent, who have kind of been there, done that, and they won't mind me saying that, So there's kind of responsibility a lot of the time is just kind of left on them to work. Where they want to work, how they want to work. As an example, we all work remotely, and we have, even prior to COVID, we've always kind of worked that way. We've never had an office. And so for me, it's a situation where as long as the work gets done, the client is happy. No one's kind of chasing me. We don't kind of get anyone kind of annoyed or pissed off at us or angry at us for whatever else. That's the kind of culture where it's empowered to my team to do the best they can. I'm always here to support, and we always have kind of catch ups. So that's kind of what we've done. We don't do anything amazing around kind of necessarily benefits or necessarily maybe around remuneration and those kind of things. But I think there is just a level of respect that I try and give my team, that I know they can do what their job. They're experts in this kind of place. They wouldn't be working here if they weren't. And I try and kind of reinforce that they've got this, and I'm here to back them up when they need backing up.
Mm. And I guess it's interesting you say that about you're more of a seasons team, because I was thinking about, rail, it's got a long history in this country, it's got a lot, it's quite a significant sort of legacy as having that long history of, we've built rail here, and we can't seem to build HS2 at the moment, but that's another story. But, generally we have been, off kind of telling other people how to build railways all around the world. And that is our sort of history. So I suppose, it's that way of kind of bringing through that sort of heritage, I suppose, and that strength as a kind of long-term kind of successful industry into the employer branding that's going to appeal to both sort of those kind of seasoned professionals, or whatever you want to call them, who there are many of in rail, obviously, because there's lots of people that come to rail and stay in rail, versus the kind of young, tech-savvy kind of potential candidates that, it's like that could either be really off-putting or really kind of appealing, depending on how you pitch it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's a great story to be told, right?
Yeah.
Around the history, but also the changes in innovation in the industry at the minute.
Yeah.
And that people, maybe the younger generation, could be part of that journey on changing its perception and being part of that innovation. As well as having a long kind of history of rail, the rail industry in the UK and across the world, and us being kind of leaders in that. And again, I said that it could be equated to like the motorsport industry. There's a long history there, and it is being kind of, that doesn't necessarily have an issue with kind of with its kind of perception, but it still has problems with kind of getting the right people into the space. And the same with the kind of the rail industry. As I said, it all comes down, I think, to that messaging and and the perception. And actually, it's not that difficult necessarily to move that dial and to start shifting that dial, get rail into a position where it's a sexy place to work again, right? You know what I mean? And that it is innovative. And actually, the fact that it's kind of, there's a perception that it's a bit old, a bit stuffy, a bit boring. Maybe things don't kind of work the way they do. I see as a potential to kind of to draw people in, to change that, as opposed to reasons for people not to join because it's not going to change. I think that's how I would approach it.
Yeah.
Let's just ask you, as a professional and as someone who isn't really from the rail background, what is your perception of the rail industry?
I mean, it's big mega projects that always seem to kind of run late and are kind of kind of costly, and you don't think about necessarily the supply chain that's all kind of running underneath all of that. I guess most people's kind of perception of it from layman's terms is rail lines being built and tunnels being built. You don't really think about all the nuances that actually get the entire network to run. Okay. And that's what's exciting about what you guys are doing and being part of this, is is getting to kind of meet some of these businesses that are underlying all of this, and bringing all this kind of new tech into this space that again does have this perception of being quite manual and hands-on, right? I think that's the kind of that's how I see it.
Yeah. It's interesting as well. I think a lot of people that I speak to don't really know the rail sector very well, probably don't also appreciate the fact that there's so many international opportunities that, like to be able to kind of be involved in projects that might be taking place, anywhere in the world really. And, that's opportunities to travel to those places or not, but to actually be part of the sort of wider projects is something that I think is a real kind of plus for somebody coming into rail. It probably isn't as appreciated as it might be.
Well, that's again, that was all an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
As a marketeer, I just see that as an opportunity to talk about that kind of stuff and to shout about that kind of stuff. And again, I think that's good. What you guys are doing at the with your membership is building that community to really, to give them a voice, right? And I think that's what's missing.
Right. Well, I'm impressed that you seem to have got happier and happier realizing the opportunities in rail. So that's very good. I wonder if I could just ask you, probably in our finishing up section, is a question we ask most of our guests. But if we can perhaps discuss you're obviously a small company with background. So what challenges have you overcome running your own small company? And then perhaps if we could cover how you've gone about solving them. And then also, what is your advice for other new companies coming into being?
So I tell you, let's deal with the advice first, because then I'll come back to the. So advice with kind of small businesses who are starting up is something I learned quite early on is outsource everything that isn't your core work, basically, right? And I always you're not going to do your own accounts, right? So why would you kind of not outsource all the other stuff that you don't see as core to your business? And again, this is not me just doing a kind of a sales pitch to say, oh, you need to outsource your marketing, etc. But if you're a small business, a lot of the time you're not about to kind of employ your own internal kind of marketing teams, because it can be very costly. Or you're not about to kind of do your own accounts internally. There might be also within the kind of engineering IT space, you're not going to do all of the development yourself. So figure out what is your kind of core USP, your core kind of talents, what you do best, what you enjoy as well, and outsource, literally try and outsource everything else as much as possible, because that just frees you up to do what you want to do on a daily basis, and you're continuing to enjoy it. One of the best pieces of advice I was ever given is, as a business owner, was don't get too big too quickly, because you just end up managing people. And we've been kind of a smaller business, we've been a slightly larger business, and I can definitely relate to that. Not everyone is built to manage people, and if that's not your kind of idea, then there's nothing wrong with staying boutique. Okay, you don't have to think like The Apprentice or Dragon's Den, because they're not necessarily representative of how actual business works. It's nothing wrong with being a boutique business and doing what you do, doing it really, really well. That's my kind of advice to people kind of starting up. So saying that, those are probably some of the challenges that I've kind of faced when I was kind of starting the business. It's trying to do everything ourselves, thinking that I was going to save money and save time and save costs by doing our own accounts and doing all the other bits and pieces that we need within the business, even at points, and doing our own marketing. Right? We actually, a lot of this stuff is actually, we work with other businesses now to support us with all of this kind of thing, because I figured out what I enjoy most around running ThinkinCircles, which is really, again, slightly arrogantly, being the figurehead and being kind of head of sales and business development. I like talking to people. I like having these discussions, and I like talking to people about employer branding and recruitment marketing that doesn't really get a huge amount of kind of coverage, and explaining that to people and talking to people about those kind of things. And this gives me time to do all that, because I've figured out that I can outsource stuff that I don't need to kind of source. I've got a team that pretty much run themselves now. Again, went through all kinds of iterations of hiring wrong people myself. I've been there, done it, had to let people go, and made mistakes, and it's all been very costly. But you're going to do that as a small business, right? That's going to happen at some point. You're probably going to hire the wrong people. And it's just part of that kind of those growing pains, basically.
It's funny, you make me think. I remember having a conversation with another one of our members who's gone from being quite small over the course of the time they've been within our membership to now significantly bigger as a company. And I remember them saying, whereas before they used to sit, lie in bed at night worrying about how they, whether the business was going to be successful, how they were going to grow the business, et cetera, all the things you would worry about when you're sort of starting out. And now what they do is they lie in bed and they worry about all of the people that work for them and all of their mortgages and how it is all reliant on them. So it's quite interesting how your set of worries as a business sort of as a CEO or whatever you might be, how those kind of worries kind of evolve over time as your company grows. I could relate to that completely.
Definitely. I've been through it. I do it a little bit still myself. And I know other business owners and founders who do exactly the same. Being responsible for people is a joy, but also can be a real worry. But that's the position we put ourselves in as founders.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
But you get to run your own business. Your own.
Yeah. Exactly.
We do.
It's good.
Exactly.
Right. James, you are going to host our meetup on the 13th of May. Tell us about that.
So we're going to kind of dive a little bit deeper into some of the stuff that we've spoken about today around kind of employer branding and being an employer of choice and how you go about it, the things that you need to kind of put in place if you do want to go down on that journey, how businesses like us can support you to get there, what you're going to get out of it, what should be the results, and all that kind of good stuff, really. Hopefully it's going to be a real kind of eye-opener because, again, it's not one of these things that really gets talked about a huge amount, but it's interesting that it ties into some of the work that, around the kind of the skills that you guys have been doing. So hopefully actually kind of it's a nice kind of smooth transition from your kind of skills report into how you then actually put some of that into practice and how you attract those kind of skills into your business with something like employer branding.
Brilliant. It's like we have
Excellent.
all strategy for this. Great. And that event is live on our website, so sign up. But James, thank you very much. Great to hear from you, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, James.
Thank
Great to speak.
Thanks for listening to another episode of What Moves Us. We hope we moved you. For more episodes, you'll definitely want to subscribe to our channel.
Till next time.